Blog Talk Radio.
Bichiamo apura kanu apurai kaitnut neye AMANSEM da medinde Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi mu Odwirafo Odwiraman mu. That means greetings to all apurai kaiti people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is AMANSEM Day, Affairs of the Nation Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America within Odwiraman, the purified nation, Apurai people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show. We're going to open up the chat room right now. We have taken a second to open up the chat room. This is our first broadcast of 13,018. Our Akhan New Year, the Akwamu New Year, begins on the Ptah, which is the so-called autumn equinox. We have a 7-day New Year's celebration, Obrajira, Nananum in September. It goes from September 16th through September 22nd or September 17th through September 23rd, depending on the year. The final day of our New Year celebration is the first day of our New Year, which is always the first full day of Ptah, which is the autumn equinox, the evening point, the end of the warm cycle, the beginning of the seeding cycle, the end of the harvest cycle, and the beginning of the seeding cycle. So that is the first day of our New Year. This year it started on September 22nd in the Gregorian calendar. That was the first day of our New Year of 13,018. So this is our first broadcast of 13,018. Of course, we do not track time based on a fictional cartoon character, Jesus who never existed, Jesus, Yeshua, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Aaron, Shiva, Shakti, all these different fictional cartoon characters never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. And, of course, we have proven that in our book, Kukutuntum, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. So we track time based on natural cycles. This is our first broadcast of 13,018. We wanted to update the Almighty, the nation, on our activities in the previous cycle and our upcoming activities and initiatives in this new cycle. We're going to reboot the chat room. If you want to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you do not have a username, you can sign up for a username quickly in Blog Talk so that you can interact. Those who are new to some of the broadcasts and have listened to broadcasts before, you'll notice that we have there's a new phone number, and that's on the page. So while we're in the midst of reopening the chat room, it's taking a minute to open up. We're getting back into some broadcasting. We previously had 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We had Akhan from Nanatom, Ancient Authentic, Akhan Ancestral Religion on Joda on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of ancestral religion of Nanatom, first and foremost because we are Akhan, secondly because of the misinformation that has been propagated regarding Akhan ancestral religion, cosmology, culture, ritual practice, and so forth. So we deal with the Akradim, Bosom, the divinities who govern the 7 days of the week, the various forces in nature, in creation, in the Akhan tradition, showing the connections with ancient Khanat, ancient Nubia, Kemet, and so forth, and across the board, going all the way to ancient Khanat, Khanit, to West Africa, all the way into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean. As we have shown in many of our broadcasts and our books, Hoodoo, which is from the Akhan term, Undu, is the Akhan ancestral religion maintained and preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America. Just as it's called Winti in South America and Suriname, it's called Obia in Jamaica. Akhan ancestral religion was preserved in the blood circles of our people for over 300 years here in North America. We were empowered by Hoodoo to wage war against the whites and their offspring, picking up metal armaments, as well as waging chemical and biological warfare through root work and so forth through Hoodoo to wage war against the whites and their offspring and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. So this is what we deal with on Joda on Monday nights. On Binada or Abinada Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with ancestral religion and its impact and influence on every aspect of our lives. Ancestral religion, or what we call Nanasom, which is just a catch-all term for Afurakani or African ancestral religion, in essence is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and restore order to our lives. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. Ojira, or purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification, Ojira, operationalizes our practice of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance to our lives. And we engage with that process because our ancestral culture is the divine law or love of order and the divine rejection or hate of disorder. So we incorporate what we need to function in creation harmoniously, to uphold Nyamewa, Nyame, and Sheshe, or divine order, and we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, need to hate, to repel, in order to restore balance to our lives. So this is what we deal with on Ojira. So we deal with ancestral religious practices, not just the Akhan tradition, but our various traditions wherever we exist in the world, whether it's on the continent or in the Western Hemisphere, within Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani people in the Western Hemisphere, our various traditions we have maintained spiritually and transcarnationally, such as Hoodoo, which is the Akhan tradition in North America, Juju, which is the Yoruba tradition preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America, Voodoo, which is the Ewe and Fon traditions preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America, Wanga, which is the Ovambo tradition preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America, Grigri, which is the Bambara and other Mindi traditions born of the blood circles and preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America, the Gullah and Geechee traditions, which are the Gola and Kisi traditions preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America, the Ngangan and Nganga, which is the Fang and Bakongo traditions preserved in our blood circles in North America. We deal with these traditions as well. So this is what we deal with on Ojira, as well as text from ancient Kemet, orature, and so forth, a number of different things. On Awukuda or Akuada Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace. We showcase Afurakani businesses, organizations, and institutions, those that are serving the Afurakani community in a positive capacity, and those who maintain their ancestral religious values in the context of their service to the community. Published our Okom economic development model, and within that Okom economic development model, we have an approach, an operation we call Starve the Beast and Feed the Pride. That means on a weekly basis, you make a determination regarding what funds you would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then you starve the beast and feed the pride. You reallocate those funds and reroute them away from the white businesses, direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. So we have targeted one Afurakani business, organization, or institution per week, targeting those funds. So when you have 100 people or 1,000 people starving the beast and feeding the pride, taking the $10 they would have spent at a white business and rerouting that $10 to the business, black business of the week, then that's a rerouting of $1,000 or $10,000 from 1,000 people spending $10, rerouting it to the business of the week. That's $10,000 that enters into the account of a black business in the course of 7 days, which allows them to hire black people to work full-time immediately, serve us at a greater capacity, expand their product lines and services to us. It's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process, then by default, we leave that $10,000 in the hands and the coffers of the whites and their offspring, our enemies. By default, we are financing our own oppression. So we must engage that process within the Akwamu economic development model, starve the beast and feed the pride on a daily basis. And of course, on Yauda, which is also Yada Abada Thursday, we have AMANSEM, affairs of the Oman, affairs of the nation. We're talking about Odwiraman. Oman means nation in the Akhan language. Jira means purification. Oman means nation in the language of ancient Kemet and Kanit. It also means the west, the land of the setting sun. And Jira means purification. It also means to celebrate a ceremony of purification. So the term is Odwiraman, means the purified. Jira, mine, nation, mine, land of the setting sun, the west. Odwiraman is the purified nation, Afro-Akani people in the land of the setting sun, the west. This is our designation for Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere. Those who are descendants of our people who were forced to migrate from Afro-Akani during the Musuo Kessie, the great perversity, the enslavement era, forced into the Western Hemisphere, but we maintained our ancestral religious traditions. We waged war against the whites and their offspring, forced the end of enslavement, established independent settlements, nations, black towns, and so forth, preserved our cultures, preserved our ancestral religious practices, and formed collectives, ancestral collectives. Different Afro-Akani people coming together, drawn to a specific region of the Earth Mother, interfacing with this region of the Earth Mother, in this region of her body, aligning with her, incorporating plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth harmoniously within our culture, within our practice. The different manifestations of the abosom, unique manifestation of the abosom, the forces in nature manifest in this region. We incorporated that through spirit possession, spirit communication, and forged a unique collective identity, a locative identity in this region of the Earth Mother, blending blood circles, manifesting through the abosom who manifest in this region in a unique fashion. So that gives a specific identity, a locative identity to Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere, which we call Odwiraman. So this is what we deal with on Yauda, Abada, Yada, Thursday, AMANSEM, affairs of the nation, affairs of the Oman, affairs of Odwiraman, the purified nation. Tonight what we're going to talk about, and of course we're talking about what we've done in the previous cycle in 13,017, our year 13,017, which just ended on September 22nd. 13,018 began, as we said, on September 22nd, the beginning of our new year. We had a number of activities in the previous year. We have a number of activities and initiatives coming up this year. In the previous cycle, and even just recently, in October, we had our third annual Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation Festival here in Washington, D.C., showcasing ancient, authentic Akhan ancestry religion preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America. We talked about Moja and Jack, showing that the Mojo and the Jack ball and so forth, and hoodoo comes from the Moja and the Ja and Akhan tradition. We talked about Nyama and Kakaru, showing that Nyama and Kakaru, or Jama and Kakaru, is the origin of High John the Conqueror and so forth, which is actually an Akhan royal who was forced into the Western Hemisphere during enslavement. We are the first to properly identify this individual, who he was, when he came to the Western Hemisphere, and the proper origin of the root and identity of the root, Kakaru, which is now pronounced Conqueror or Conqueror root and so forth, but it's actually the term for ginger in the Akhan tradition. So we went into detail about that. We had Afia Asase Bretuo doing a presentation on Aakhuamuman. We had Ama Asase Ajay doing a presentation on Nduye, which is dealing with ritual medicine and so forth. So we had a great third annual Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation Festival. We have our Etchi Sign Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference coming up in March, which will be the 3rd annual Etchi Sign Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference, where we deal with ancestral religious practices preserved in the blood circles of our people in North America. We have individuals from different traditions, not just the Akhan tradition, which is hoodoo, but also juju, vodun, wanga, ngangan, and so forth. So you'll see that information on the page. We have a couple of events coming up, and the first event that we're going to talk about, and when you go to the webpage, you'll see on the webpage, the new webpage, and we'll post that in the chat room right now. We have an event coming up in February, and we just posted that in the chat room. Okay. So you see that in the chat room, our HAPI-MERIT Hibernation Retreat in Edisto Island, South Carolina, the Gullah Islands, South Carolina. This is going to be taking place the weekend of February 16th through the 19th. And let me just pull this up real quick. And again, for those who are just tuning in, if you have any questions or comments, you can log into the chat room. If you do not have a username, you have to sign up for a username, which you can do that in Blog Talk quickly so you can interface in the chat room. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, simply hit the number 1. The new number for calling in is 646-787-8155. And if there are any sound issues, let us know, of course, in the chat room so we can adjust that. So we go to the HAPI-MERIT page. First of all, you'll see the information. You'll see the images of the 2 divinities, Hapi and Merit. Now, the subtitle says Oberima and Obatain, Afurai Manhood and Afurai Womanhood Training, Cultural, and Ritual Retreat. This is an annual retreat, and this is our first annual retreat, first annual training retreat for those who will become facilitators of Oberima and Obatain, Afurai Manhood and Afurai Womanhood training in their communities. Oberima, Afurai or African manhood, and Obatain, Afurai or African womanhood trainings are designed to be conducted in 7 one-hour sessions for 7 weeks based upon the 7 chapters of each book. So what we're talking about here is we published the Oberima Afurai Manhood book in 13,008, Gregorian calendar 2008. And then we just complimentary Obatain Afurai Womanhood book this past August. So now that we have the complementary publications, a manual of manhood for Afurai men, a manual for womanhood for Afurai women. They both have 7 sections, 7 principal values of manhood and womanhood, governed by 7 sections. The 7 principal values stream from the abosom, the divinities, the forces in nature that animate the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week. In our publication, our book series, Akradin Bosom, Akhan Abosom of the Okra, the soul, and the Akhan 7-day week, we prove, of course, that the 7-day week was established by ancient Akhan people in ancient Khanat, Nubia. It was taken up into the so-called Near East, into Sumer thousands of years ago. The whites and our offspring learned about the 7-day week and the deities that govern the 7-day week and the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies and so forth from our people. Akhan people have maintained that 7-day week with the same deities. We have Akradin or soul names based on the deities that govern the 7-day week, specifically dealing with the forces in nature that animate the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies which govern these 7 days. So Kwesi and Akoswe are Esi, Kwajo and Ajua, Kwabena and Abena, Kwaku or Kweku and Akua or Akwia, Yao, Kwao, Ya, Abba, Afua, Afi, Afia, Efua, Kofi, Kwafi, Kwame, Ama, Ameminiwa, Amit, and so forth. These variations of the Akradin or soul names taken on by Akhan males and females based on the day of the week we're born. It's not just the day, but the divinity that governs the solar, lunar, and planetary body that governs the day. Each of the planets, suns, moons, stars are entities, black substance of space, oceans, rivers, atmosphere, earth mother, black earth, red earth, the core of earth, and so forth, fire, wind, these different features of creation are physical features, but the spiritual forces that animate these different aspects of creation, including various stars, black substance of space, the suns, the moons, and so forth, just like your spirit animates your physical body. The earth mother, the fertile earth mother, there's a spirit that animates the body of the fertile earth mother and the barren, quote-unquote, and stern earth mother as well. Those twin earth mother spirits, Asase Yafua and Asase Yaz, they're called in our Akhan tradition. Asase Nebetepet and Asase Nebepet, as they're called in ancient Kemet. These divinities, the spirits animate the physical bodies of found in creation. The spiritual forces that animate the suns, moons, stars, and so forth, they possess these different aspects, features of creation, physical features of creation, just like your spirit possesses your physical body for a number of decades until you transition back into the ancestral realm. The days of the week are governed by the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies in succession, and they give their character and energy complex to the different days based on the abosom that govern them, the divinities that govern them. The Akhan term for deities, spirit forces in nature, goddesses and gods is abosom. They're called Orisha in the Yoruba tradition, Vodou in the Ebe and Bone traditions, Arusi in the Igbo traditions. Popular title is Ntoru and Ntorotu, so-called Neteru and Netertu in ancient Kemet, but the terms vocalized as Ntoru and Ntorotu as the gods and goddesses, the forces in nature. Those forms are still used in the Akhan languages, Ntoro and Ntorot as well, so we have the proper vocalization. We're talking about the forces in nature. So there are 7 days of the week governed by the 7 solar, lunar, and planetary bodies in succession. The 7 sections of each book of Odwiraman, Afurakani manhood, Afurakani womanhood, or Ba'atan are governed by a principal value governed by each day of the week, which are governed by the Abosom who govern that day. So every single day of the week carries its own energy complex. It has its own principal value. So every day of the week we have a teaching that's connected to the energy complex of the day that informs your manifestation of manhood and womanhood every day of your life, that you aspire to, that you crystallize within your life and you emulate, and you become worthy of emulation as you grow and develop for others who are coming behind you and others who interface with you in our community. So we have these 2 books, complementary books. Now that we have both together, it took a few years to have both of them published. The first one in 2008, as we said, and the Womanhood book in just this past August. Now that we have both, now we're having our first annual retreat, and this will be, of course, ongoing. We have that complementary set, and this will be a training retreat, cultural and ritual retreat for Odwiraman, for Odwiraman Afurakani manhood, Obatan Afurakani womanhood on a yearly basis. We call it hibernation. This is the beginning of a hibernation period. When you look at February 16th, around February 16th, February 17th, that is the time frame where we shift into the period of HAPI-MERIT. The whites and their offspring misrepresenting our ancestral culture, not understanding who the abosom, the deities, are, because they cannot communicate with them. Forces in nature only communicate with created entities, plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, the African black human life only. The whites in our offspring are cancerous cells that are deviant from the original Afurakani human being, just like cancerous cells within your body deviate from the other healthy cells. So they are slated for destruction by your immune system and lymphatic system. But the healthy cells are preserved. The whites in our offspring are the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity who have deviated from the normal structure. So they are slated for eradication. But the forces in nature that govern creation do not possess cancerous cells. They eradicate cancerous cells. They possess and nourish and replenish and rejuvenate and empower the healthy cells. And Afurakani people, just as plant life, animal life, and mineral life, we are all cells within the great divine body of the great mother and great father, Aminet, and Amen, called Nyamewa and Nyame, and Akhan, and Mawu, and Lisa, and Vodun, Olokun, and Olorun, in the Yoruba tradition, and so forth. So, we are cells within the great divine body. The forces in nature possess and animate and guide and replenish us, and so forth. So when we're talking about these different principal values that govern each one of the days of the week, and they're governed by the forces in nature, they govern each one of the days of the week in the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies, and so forth, we have this collection of a holistic set of principal values. Only our people can put that forward. So we're worthy to be emulated by our youth, our children, as well as adults who interface with us when we align ourselves with divine order through these principal values on a daily basis. So, as we were saying, since we have both books together, now we can put this together and have this yearly piece for Odwiraman, the Purified Nation. When you look at the page, it says they're designed to be conducted in 7 one-hour sessions for 7 weeks based on the chapters of the book. These books and related trainings are a philosophical basis for rites of passage for youth and adults. We said it's a philosophical basis because manhood and womanhood rooted in our ancestral, quote-unquote, DNA. We have, when you're born into the world, when you incarnate through your mother's womb, you come into the world assigned to specific abosom. An abosom or orisha or vodou that governs the head region, your head divinity, but you also have patriclan and matriclan abosom that empower you and give nuance to your identity. Just like you have DNA from the mother and DNA from the father, and that fuses together to create a unique individual physiologically, which is you. You have a spiritual, quote-unquote, DNA from the mother, spiritual DNA from the father. You have an energy complex. The sperm cell of the father is a physical entity, but the force in nature that animates that sperm cell, which has protected your patriclan for thousands of years, and the sperm cell becomes part of your body as a zygote, and you become an embryo and so forth. That energy complex that powered that sperm cell, that patriclan divinity, which we call the Ntoro or the Ejabosom in Akhan, the father's divinity or patriclan divinity, that becomes part of that identity. The ovum is an entity, but the spiritual force that animates the ovum, that spiritual female divinity that has protected your matriclan ancestresses and ancestors for thousands of years, animating that ovum, that comes into play when the ovum and the sperm fuse. Physiologically, they fuse into a zygote, an entity, a unified entity. But the patriclan and matriclan energy complexes also fuse together and give nuance to who you will become. And then, of course, you have a divinity in the head region, which is the major divinity that guides your life, which is informed by the patriclan divinity and the matriclan divinity. So those three, the head divinity, patriclan and matriclan, like a triangle with 3 points. The apex is the head divinity that guides your life. And then the patriclan and matriclan divinities, the 2 bottom points of the triangle, they give nuance and contours to the manifestation of that head divinity in the unique manner in which you will express yourself through that force of nature that governs your head. So, These are things that determine the character and the function of an individual. So those are unique, and each culture has their own way of dealing with that. But there are certain foundational principles of manhood and womanhood that govern all Afro-Akani people. We are all subject to the forces in nature that govern all natural cycles in creation. The forces in nature that govern all natural cycles in creation are the abosom that govern the 7 days of the week. So when we have this Obatime and Oberima, Afro-Akani manhood and Afro-Akani womanhood set of 7 values, that's foundational. And then when you go into your own specific ancestral clans, you give even further nuance based on your specific clan affiliation to these 7 principal values. So this is why we say these 2 books are the philosophical basis for rites of passage. Once people are found grounded in manhood and womanhood, then when they move into their ancestral cultures, their unique ancestral cultures, whether it's Hoodoo or Juju or Vodun, Akhan, Yoruba, Ebe, so on and so forth, and how that is manifested in the Western Hemisphere, it gives further nuance to the way we express these principles of manhood and womanhood through those specific cultures. So this is what we're dealing with. The restoration of Afro-Akani manhood and Afro-Akani womanhood rooted in our ancestral religious values is key to the restoration of Odwiraman, the purified nation. Again, we're not talking about secular approaches to rites of passage. There's no such thing as an authentic approach to rites of passage or manhood and womanhood that's rooted in secularism, that's Eurocentric. We come into the world assigned to specific abosom, assigned to specific ancestral clans, protected and guided by specific ancestresses and ancestors of our clans. So that must be taken into account when we're talking about shaping the manhood and womanhood of our people. So, manhood and womanhood rooted in our ancestral religious values is key to the restoration of Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere. This is a foundational element of Amaniye, which means Afro-Akani or African Black nationism, the purification of nationalism. We talk about nationism, Amaniye or nationism. We're talking about a nation as a living, breathing entity governed by specific abosom. So just like you have a number of cells that collect in a certain region that are supporting the heart, a number of cells that collect in a certain region and function together interdependently to support the liver, a number of cells that collect in a certain region functioning interdependently to support the spleen and the pancreas and so forth. A nation, a real Oman, constitutes Afro-Akani people who are drawn to a specific region of the Earth Mother, drawn together by ancestresses and ancestors. We are naturally inclined to join and coalesce in a certain region. We blend spiritual and ancestral blood circles. We bring ancestresses and ancestors back into the world as part of that unique collective in that specific region of the Earth Mother, dealing with the unique expression of the abosom manifest in that region of the Earth Mother. And now you have a collective of people who are unified spiritually, rooted in their locative identity, the region of the Earth Mother that they have taken up residence in and they align themselves with. And now you have a real nation, a collection of people governed by specific abosom forces in nature and ancestral clans that are nourishing and replenishing that nation. We're talking about nationism, the purification of nationalism. Nationism being nationalism rooted in our ancestral religious values in reality. If you're going to have a purified nation, Odwiraman, the purified nation of Afro-Akani people in the Western Hemisphere, we must ground and establish and build up strong, authentic Afro-Akani men and Afro-Akani women. Now, and this is why we say the purification of nationalism. For grounded Afro-Akani men and women form strong marriages, raise strong children, and build strong families. The cornerstone of Afurakani Afurakainit, the Oman, the nation. All Afurakano Afurakainut Africans must be grounded in these principles. So we come together like this and engage that process. February is the time of HAPI-MERIT, the abosom of the inundation of the river in ancient Kemet. So the river in ancient Kemet, it very rarely rained in ancient Kemet. The river would swell at a certain particular time of the year and overrun its banks and flood the region, the floodplain, for a number of months, and then the waters would begin to recede. And once the waters receded, then there was fertile black silt deposited on the banks of the river, and then people could go out then and plant their seeds, and then eventually that would guarantee crops because they couldn't depend on rainfall. They had to depend on the river swelling every year. The male and female forces that govern the inundation or the swelling of the river on a yearly basis, which will bring abundance, is Hapi, the male divinity, and there's a Hapi of the south and Hapi of the north. Hapi of the south is Hapi Reset, Hapi of the north is HAPI-MERIT, and then we have Merit, the female divinity. There are twin female divinities, Merit Shema, Merit of the south, and then her sister Merit, Merit of the north. Hapi and Merit, the abosom, the forces in nature of the inundation, they cause that swelling of the river. Once that water begins to recede, that's when Hapi and Merit go into hibernation for a specific period. This is why this specific event is called the hibernation retreat. We're going into hibernation for a period, just like the waters receding, going back into their channels for a period for some retooling, some replenishment, and so forth. And once we become the hibernation, the purified nation becomes the hibernation for a specific period. We retool, replenish ourselves, develop ourselves, and then when we return, then we can come out and flood the community with proper information and so forth. So we say that cycle, and by the way, as we said earlier, February 16th, 17th, around that particular time period, that's the beginning of the time of Hapi and Merit. The whites and their offspring misnomer Hapi and Merit, and specifically Hapi, the divinity who holds the vessels and pours the water into the quote-unquote Nile River or the Hop River, causing it to swell and inundating. You see Merit doing the same thing. He's called the water bearer, and the whites and their offspring call him the water bearer and call him Aquarius. And they show him pouring vessels of water into the great river. And, of course, they misrepresent him as a white male deviant and so forth. And they misnomer with regard to the time. When we look at the actual zodiac, we're talking about what is now called the astronomical zodiac. When you look at the tropical zodiac, about 89% of the dates in the tropical zodiac are inaccurate. When you look at the astronomical zodiac, the actual placement of the constellations where they actually are, you have a different set of constellations. There are 13 constellations that actually cross the ecliptic as opposed to 12. Because of the precession of the equinoxes, there was a shift over the past 2,000 years. A couple of thousand years ago, there were only 12 constellations that crossed the ecliptic. Because of the precession of the equinoxes, the movement of the earth, the wobbling, spinning of the earth and so forth, like a gyroscope where the earth spins, there's a shift that has taken place, and now 13 constellations cross the ecliptic. And they're not all 30 days each. You have one that's 32 days, one that's 45 days, one that lasts 7 days, and so forth. So when you deal with the quote-unquote astronomical zodiac, you're talking about where the constellations actually are. And about 89% of the dates in the tropical zodiac are inaccurate, and only about 11% of the dates are accurate. When you look at the astronomical zodiac, you will find that Aquarius, which is really Hapi and Merit, begins around February 16th, February 17th, and this is why we place this hibernation retreat around that particular time. It's a preparation, as we say, for the abundance that will manifest in the Fefel Bede Akhan, for the beautiful time, which means the spring. So we're going to have separate sessions for males and females at the retreat. It is on Edisto Island, South Carolina, the Gullah Islands, which, of course, the Gullah Geechee Nation, which is comprised of Gola and Kisi people and other, in smaller percentages, other Afurakani ethnic groups, forced into enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. Many of them waged war to fight against the whites and their offspring, preserve their culture, and so forth. So there are still groups, populations of people in that area who have maintained certain ancestral lands and so forth, and we wanted to go to that ancestral region for our hibernation retreat. So this is where we're going to be at. When you look on the page, you'll see some of the details and so forth. What we're going to have on the first day is the Ptah Sasatim training workshop, which is a joint 3-hour workshop. Ptah Sasatim is an educational curriculum for Afurakani people, youth, as well as adults. That will be the first workshop in the afternoon on that first day. Then we will break out into 2 separate sessions. One will be the Oberima Afurakani Manhood Training Workshop with just the Merima or men, and then the Obatain Training Workshop, which will be just for the Maatain or the women, and we'll have those separate trainings in the piece. We will be conducting the Oberima Afurakani Manhood Workshop myself. Dr. Iya Ajwa will be conducting the Obatain Afurakani Womanhood Workshop based upon the Obatain Afurakani Womanhood book. And then we will have another session on the following day, as well as ritual. We will also have vegan food and so forth. So all of that information you will find on the page, on the HAPI-MERIT page. We just want to make sure, okay, so if you have any questions or comments on the phone line, you can hit the number 1. If you have any questions or comments in the chat room, simply log in as a user. You must sign up as a user in order to log in. So that's the next event coming up, and you see all the different details on the page. Initially, we had the deadline for registration was the previous week, which was last week, but then some people needed some extra time, so we pushed it to this past Friday. We had a couple of cancellations recently, so if you still would like to register, there are a couple of spaces left. So if you would like to register for the HAPI-MERIT retreat, simply go to the page, the HAPI-MERIT page. You will see the details there. You'll see that we do have a payment plan for that. The fee is a $200 fee, which includes the vegan food for the days. And you'll see that information also for the free books and so forth. It also helps to cover the expenses for everything. So you'll see that there's a payment plan for that. And also for those who are married couples as well as unmarried couples, it's 2 for 1. So the $200 fee covers both people. It's not, you don't have to pay $200 each. It's basically $100 each if you're a married couple or an unmarried couple. And of course, we support the union of marriage or people who are moving in that direction. So we have that. So all details are there. If you have any questions or comments, just email us at kwesiakhan@gmail.com for that. Now we're going to move into the next piece that we just recently released, and we're going to put this piece in the chat room right now. Put the link in the chat room right now. In the meantime, as we're placing this, pulling up this information, since we have a couple of other things coming up, we're in the process right now of dealing with our documentary film. We plan to have that complete. We had a couple of setbacks, but we plan to have it complete this within the next couple of months. You can go to our page, and our different pages, we have a link on our website to the different pages. You can see the trailer for our documentary film, Amaruka Adebisa Ajumade, African American Ancestral Divination Project. We're having a number of healers and healeresses. Myself, Voodoo Queen Galinda Laveau out of New Orleans, Mama Mawusi Al-Shakir out of Cincinnati. We have Kajala Niaya Nebehet, the founderess of Raseki. We have Wabet Seshat Tut Ankh Wajet, who's the founder of Wajet Yoga and so forth, dealing with the forms of divination that we have preserved in our blood circles here in North America. We're having a documentary film. We're working on that. We plan to have that complete as soon as possible. You can go to our page to help with the crowdfunding effort. We're at about 45% right now, 45 or 46%. We're not getting any funding from outside of the Afro-Akani community. We're not getting any grants or loans or anything else. So this is totally funded by our people who see value in the work. So you can check out our page on that. This past year, we published a number of books. We released, of course, the books connected to our conferences, the Echisign Conference, Ancestral Religious Reversion in March, the Odwiraman Conference, the Purified Nationism Conference, dealing with nation building that we had in June around the summer solstice. We have the Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference around the spring equinox in March, and then we have the Odwiraman Festival in October. So those are the three major conferences throughout the year. And we always produce a book for each conference, and we give away a free copy of that book to everyone who attends. All of our conferences, as well as our presentations, when we do presentations around the country, they're always free of charge, open to our people only. It's mission for our people only. They're free of charge always, and we always give away a free copy of one of our 29 books, whatever book we're speaking on that particular day, to everyone who attends. So they come to a free event. You always come to a free event, and you always receive a free copy of a book. That's been our practice for years. So we published those books, but we also published a book recently in September, on September 16th or September 17th, Tahuti, Sankofa, Fa, and Ifa, male deity of divine wisdom and divination in Akhan, Ebe, Fon, and Yoruba. So we're showing that Tahuti is the divinity Sankofa, and Sankofa is the same as Fa in Vodun and Ifa in the Yoruba tradition, Afa and Igbo and so forth. We show the connection of Tahuti and Seshat, the male and female divinities of divine wisdom and divination, as Sankofa and Sankofawa, the deities Sankofa and Sankofawa. And we also show their connection to Het Heru, which is the sanctuary of Sankofa and Sankofawa and so forth. So we released that publication in September. Of course, the month before that, we released Obatai, Afro-Akani Womanhood. And then in October, we released the Hoodoo Nation publication, 13,018, for the festival. Within that, we have the article Hoodoo Wars, talking about Okumpo Yao, Nat Turner, the solar eclipse, Osar, and Heru, showing the connection between all of that. We also talk about Nyama and Kakaduru, which is the origin of the Akhan, origin of Haijan, the conqueror, the man and the root revealed, and so forth, and a number of different articles and so forth. So we released those publications over the past few months. Now, the final piece we want to talk about tonight, when you go to the Black Swan Life page on the website, some of you have seen this information on the website. And when you go to the page, you see this information. So this is what this is on one hand began in a certain manner as a project, but it's become more of a movement. So when you see the quote, some of you saw that we posted initially the image of a black swan, and there was a quote, and you'll see that quote on the first on the page of the website. The quote says, "There is an intrinsic elegance manifest in the upright, tight-knit African black woman with a slender physique that others do not have. One would not suggest that a swan needs to have, quote-unquote, neck implants to be beautiful. They are intrinsically beautiful by virtue of the fact that they manifest a slender, elegant form. The intrinsic elegance of the black swan has no comparison. The measure of her value is inherent in her nature." That's the end of the quote. The way that quote came about is that we were in a conversation with a sister who has done a great deal of work with regard to uplifting and empowering our people educational-wise through spirituality and culture and just a number of different things. She had put forth some information showing the natural beauty of the upright, tight-knit woman, and we were talking about her also doing something with regard to this whole notion of black women getting into this process of using injections and all of this other nonsense. Us following the whites and their offspring, injecting our bodies with silicone and other, poisonous products and substances, trying to adhere to an ideal promoted by the whites and their offspring, which is insane. In the past, the only people who were able to afford cosmetic surgeries and so forth were people who were a little bit wealthy. It was more so a white thing and so forth. But because our people were so brainwashed, once the prices dropped and once the processes were made available in a very simplified fashion, then those of our people who have been brainwashed for a number of years, they were ready to rush in and grasp that whole process. So where it used to be thousands of dollars, somebody has to, get cosmetic surgery and implants and all this other nonsense. Now people can spend a couple of $100. Someone poor in the inner city and so forth, if they can pull together a couple of $100, people are having parties just like they would have tattoo parties and meet at someone's house, and someone will come over and do tattoos for people. Now they meet at someone's house, and somebody will come and bring their little injection guns and so forth, and they will inject the sisters so they can inject their behinds and everything else, which is pure nonsense. The whites and their offspring have been promoting sexual deviance in various ways. Of course, dissexuality, homosexuality, that is an agenda to destroy the fabric of Akwamu family life and so forth. That is, of course, the perverse criminal nature of the whites and their offspring. Of course, they're sexual deviants by nature. They've always manifested that perversity, but they seek to force that perversity on our people so that they can decrease our birth rate and increase our death rate. So that's always been their policy initiative. One manifestation of sexual deviance is promoting an insane ideal of what beauty is and everything else. Promoting hip-hop artists and R&B artists and so forth who are getting injections and everything else. Of course, skin bleaching, hair straightening, everything else to look something outside of yourself. When we embrace our culture, we don't fall into that idiocy. For example, when we embrace our culture dealing with the abosom, the forces in nature that govern all natural cycles, which govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7-day week, woman born on a specific day connects to a specific abosom, manifests the character of that abosom in specific, unique ways, but also the phenotype and the body type. So you have some people who are more lean and don't retain as much water. So they're more lean, they're more slender and so forth. But you have some who are a little bit more voluptuous based on the energy complex that governs them. Each one of them have their own quality. They have their own value. They have their own intrinsic, quote-unquote, beauty, which is a manifestation of harmony. Beauty is simply the manifestation of harmony, and simply in the divine sense. When you have divine order, things are operating in a fashion that's based on the dictates of the Supreme Being. Harmony is the manifestation of order. If things are orderly and you perceive this order, what you're perceiving is harmony. Harmony is a manifestation of order. And when something is beautiful, that is simply, in the real sense, when you have real actual beauty, that's a revelation of harmony. That's harmony manifest in the world. The divinity Afi, Afia, Afua, Heteru, called Oshun and Ezili and Ezuli and so forth, the female force of divine beauty, the sensual attraction as the precursor to procreative activity and the replenishment of its harmony, which is quote-unquote pleasure and so forth, but she's the manifestation. She is beauty manifest. That means divine harmony, things working in a harmonious fashion, meaning a divinely ordered fashion. So when you have real beauty, you have the manifestation of harmony. When people are living in harmony with the abosom that govern them, they will manifest a certain kind of phenotype, a certain kind of body type in alignment with the divinity that governs them. When people know exactly who they are, you can look at someone's body type and tell what day of the week they were born on, and look at their specific personality characteristics and attune to what day of the week they were born on because of the energy complex that they express, that they exude. The same thing when they live in harmony with their nature, their body type naturally crystallizes into a manifestation of that energy complex, which of course has certain nuanced contours based on their patriclan and matriclan inheritance, but it's still the central theme is governed by the divinity that governs their head. So when we understand that, we won't look and say, like the whites in our offspring, if you're not a quote-unquote Oshun type or a voluptuous type, that's the only type that's beautiful and everything else is inferior. That's what the whites in our offspring want our people to believe, because they know there's only a certain percentage of our people who are the voluptuous quote-unquote type. So then that means the vast majority of our people will believe that we're inferior. And if the vast majority of the sisters believe that they're inferior because the whites in our offspring told them that they were, and they take on that inferiority complex, they would seek to disfigure themselves, enrich the whites in our offspring while they're doing it, disfigure themselves, but they also empower the ignorance of our own Afurakani males because they're also buying into that foolishness. They have the inferiority complex. They perpetuate it amongst the females, and they want only the voluptuous type and so forth. So they inferiorize the females inferiorize themselves, guided by the whites in their offspring, and they're oppressing themselves mentally, oppressing themselves emotionally, oppressing themselves even financially. And then they oppress their own children and everything else. It's a very negative, vicious cycle of self-hatred, which leads to self-destruction, which also leads to domestic violence and everything else because people are cheating and fighting and not content with the nature and structure of the woman as who she is. But when we look, for example, at a swan, if you look at the black swan, imagine someone saying, well, your neck is too slender, you need to get some neck implants or else you're not beautiful. If you don't look like a lioness, if you don't have the physique of a lioness, then you're inferior. Or if you don't have the physique of an eagle, a female eagle, then you're inferior. If you don't have the physique of, a giraffe and so forth, you're inferior. That's insane. The swan has their own natural figure, and there's an intrinsic beauty within the swan. The same is true of any other naturally occurring entity. So we have a number of our sisters, the vast majority of our sisters are not the voluptuous type, but they have their own energy complexes based on the female deity that actually governs their head. And when they're in alignment with that, then they're in alignment with the natural harmony of that divinity as it emanates from that divinity through the agency of that female who's a shrine for that divinity, and she manifests that harmony, and beauty is manifest harmony. So when we understand that, we understand where that quote, this is where the quote came from. We were in the discussion, me and the sister were in a discussion, and as we were interacting, this is the quote I typed in response to something that she said, and eventually the Nsamanfo said, hey, maybe you need to place that quote and publish that quote. So we put the quote online. A number of people really appreciated the sentiment being put forward about the quote and the cosmology that undergirded it. We put an image of a black swan then we were directed by the Nsamanfo to go further and fully develop that understanding. And this, of course, that's coming from the Nsamanfo, the ancestors is an ancestor, because it's really a feature of our culture. When we deal with the nature of Het Heru, the nature of Afia, the divinity that manifests beauty and so forth, and as we have published recently, beauty is not a quality, beauty is a deity. Literally, the term Nefer in ancient Kemet is a term Efe and Festel in Akhan, that is a title of Het Heru, the divinity that governs manifest harmony. She is the force in nature that pulls together the male and female magnetically in a harmonious fashion, fuses together complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion. She then fuses together the male and female in copulation in a harmonious fashion. She fuses together the sperm and ovum in a harmonious fashion, and then gestation occurs and a new life is born. She fuses together different elements like different colors in a harmonious fashion for artwork, different shapes in a harmonious fashion for artwork, different movements in a harmonious fashion for dance and so forth, different sounds in a harmonious fashion for music. So when they talk about Het Heru, Afia, Oshun, Erzuli being the divinity of beauty and love and art and music and dance and all these artistic things, what they're talking about is her energetic complex having the capacity fuse together complementary opposites in a harmonious fashion. She doesn't fuse together corrupt elements. She repels corrupt elements. She doesn't fuse together the whites in our offspring with black people. She repels cancerous cells and fuses together naturally created entities and then fuses them together in a harmonious fashion. This is why she governs marriage. So when she's fusing these things together, it's based on those things that should be together. So if people are coming together to copulate and so forth, and they shouldn't be in a relationship, but they're forcing it anyway based on lust, Het Heru has nothing to do with that. She's trying to lead you to your actual complement. You're rejecting that and going somewhere else following lust. She's not participating when you're copulating with somebody you shouldn't be engaged with. She only fuses together complementary opposites who should be together. Those who are being led towards marriage and so forth, she governs those unions, but she doesn't govern just anybody engaged in sexual activity, which is key. But when she's fusing together these various elements in a harmonious fashion, that harmony that is manifest is Nefer, is beauty itself, and she's called Het Heru Nefer, the beautiful one and so forth. So, when we understand the cosmological foundation that beauty is not a quality, beauty is actually a deity, then we have a firm understanding of who we are, how we should function in the world, what is constructive, what is destructive. What is constructive for ourselves is self-constructive, what is self-destructive. What is the manifestation of self-love or law? What is the manifestation of self-hatred? When you engage in self-hatred because you don't understand the divinity of beauty, then you engage in self-destructive behavior. And anyone who connected to you is affected by that self-destructive behavior, including your children. The whites in their offspring understand that, so by simply corrupting the notion of beauty, they can create a series of cascading self-destructive behaviors that affect not only the individual, but everyone the individual is connected to, including the children. We have to restore that consciousness of who these Abosom are in this particular context, the divinity of the deity Nefer, a title of Het Heru, the deity beauty. When you look at the information on the page, you'll see that we pulled together some images to reflect that cosmology. And then these images were put together not only to reflect that cosmology, but it's also part of the first line of we have T-shirts, and the T-shirts are the Black Swan Life T-shirts, and you'll see the hashtag Black Swan Life, hashtag and so forth, and you'll see that if you type that online. You'll see that on a number of different places. We worked with our sister Afia Asate Bracewo, and she was able to pull together those elements in a harmonious fashion. Of course, she's an Afia, which is a title of Het Heru in ancient Kemet, Fait or Feet, and Afia and Akhan. And of course, we're very thankful to her for being able to pull these elements together, and we worked together on that. Nsamanfo directed us to utilize the specific animal totem of the swan, as well as the ancestress Mut Ames Nefertari, the Sankofa symbol, the water in the background and so forth, and the specific Medutu, the hieroglyphs that comprise these different things that represent that cosmology. And we're going to go through real quick the information you see on the page so you can have a better understanding of what we are putting forward with regard to this notion of the divinity of beauty, but also this movement to restore the consciousness of who we are. If we don't understand who Het Heru and her central function is, she governs the reproductive system. If you can't fuse together the sperm and ovum in a harmonious fashion, then of course there will be no conception, there will be no birth, there will be no returning of ancestors and ancestors. In the context of your everyday life, in the upper regions, you have a fusion of and gestation within the womb area, but of course in the head region, in the consciousness, within the brain and so forth, when you're fusing together different thought forms in a harmonious fashion, if you have disordered thoughts and disharmonious thoughts because they're not being fused together, the various elements of things that you're contemplating, if they're not fused together in a harmonious fashion, then you have disordered thoughts. It can manifest as mental illness. It can manifest as self-destructive behavior and everything else. So Het Heru governs that fusing together of harmonious elements within consciousness, just like she fuses together the harmonious elements physically with regard to the sperm and ovum, with regard to the Aakhuamuman man, Aakhuamuman and so forth. So her influence is pervasive throughout every aspect of our lives. If we don't have beauty, that means we don't have harmony. If we don't have harmony, that means we do not have order. If we don't have order, that means we're living in disorder. That means we're self-destructive, and every aspect of our life is hanging by the thread of discordance and disorder. When you go to the Black Swan Life page, we show the image of the great Henut, or Queen Mother, Mut Nesut. Ames Nefertari was the Queen Mother. Mut Nesut. Mut means mother, and Nesut, or Ainsut, means sovereign. She was the Queen Mother. She was also the Hemat Ntoro, which means the wife of the deity Amen, meaning the high priestess of the deity Amen. Mut Nesut Ames Nefertari was the first queen, or Henut, of the 18th dynasty, over 3,500 years ago. She was the most venerated woman in the trustery of Kemet. The ancestral worship of Mut Nesut Ames Nefertari lasted for hundreds of years after her death and up until today. She's an honored ancestress and still evoked today, and she still guides our people today. She's a great-great-great-great-grandmother, still honored today by those who recognize our spirit genetic connection to our great ancestress, inclusive of Afuraka the Africans on the continent of Afuraka in Africa, as well as those of us in the Western Hemisphere who practice ancestral religion. Mut Nesut Ames Nefertari is the epitome of the great elderess, the Nana, the matron ancestress of Black Swan life. The Black Swan is her Achinebois sacred animal totem. Then we have the Adinkra symbol Sankofa in between Mut Nesut Ames Nefertari and the symbol in between her and the swan. Sankofa means Sankofa, return, go and grasp from your ancestral past in order to restore balance to life circumstances in the present and lay a firm foundation for the future. Sankofa and Sankofawa are the titles of the male and female abosom deities of divine wisdom and divination, Tahuti and Seshat. But structurally, within those symbols, structurally, Sankofa is the sanctuary And when you look at the structure of the symbol, you'll see it's a sanctuary of physical and spiritual conception leading to the rebirth of the Aakhuamuman human being in the womb, from the womb, and also the birth of the innovative and creative thoughts and ideas which transform our lives in harmony with divine order. When you look at the fallopian tubes, you'll see that's the same structure as that Sankofa symbol. The fallopian tubes are governed by Het Heru. That's where conception takes place, the fusion of the sperm and ovum. This is why she has the great curved cow's horns on her head. She is shown as the great divine cow and so forth. We show all of that symbolism in our book dealing with Sankofa and so forth. But the fallopian tubes are that structure that is the sanctuary wherein Tahuti and Seshat operate in the conception process. With the return of an ancestor or ancestress, that spirit entering into the womb area when the fusion of the sperm and ovum takes place. So we say structurally, Sankofa is the sanctuary of physical and spiritual conception, leading to the rebirth of the Aakhuamuman, or African black human being from the womb, and also the birth of innovative and creative thoughts and ideas which transform our lives in harmony with divine order. So there's a conception that takes place in the womb area, in the fallopian tubes, that's in the lower portion or the earthly portion of the body, and then the heavenly portion of the body, as above, so below. The heavenly portion of the body, the head region, that's also the sanctuary of Het Heru, where thoughts and ideas are conceived in a harmonious fashion, fused together in a harmonious fashion, so that we can govern our lives in a harmonious fashion reflective of divine order. And this is why we say, of course, the structural sanctuary in the womb as well as in the head region. And, of course, in the male, the complementary structure is the epididymis of the male, and it's the fallopian tubes of the female. But the structural sanctuary is governed by the female abosom deity Het Heru, who is called Afi in Akhan, Oshun in Yoruba, Azili or Ezuli in Bodun. Het Heru is the abosom deity of conception, creativity, beauty, artistry, and marriage, fusion of complementary opposites, and divine harmony in creation. Then we have the Medutu that you see in the symbol, the hieroglyphs in the symbol, showing first the sacred Bennu bird, which illuminates, fires, and concretizes the primordial black mound of earth in the beginning, after it emerged from the primordial waters at the beginning of creation. The primordial black waters at the beginning of creation. This primordial black mound formed the first black earth upon which we would dwell in the heartland, the continent of Aakhuamuman. So we show that sacred bird coming from that sacred black mound. The term Swan or Swan shown in the Medutu is the second set of Medutu or hieroglyphs describing the region of ancient Khanate, Nubia or Sudan, southern Kemet at certain periods of the true history, northern Khanate or northern Nubia and other periods of the true history and so forth, that region from which our early ancestresses and ancestors began to establish civilization rooted in our ancestral religious values. That region was called Swan or Aswan. The final set of Medutu comprised the term Anket, the feminine manifestation of the divinity of life. Ankh is the male manifestation. Anket is the female manifestation. These terms define the primordial, sacred, black bird who comes into being in the beginning, bringing the light and life of civilization. That's what those Medutu represent. The imagery is afloat, the primordial waters of Epo Abena, the great mother abosom deity of the Atlantic Ocean, the great waters across which we were forced to migrate into the Western Hemisphere, and the same purificatory waters that cleansed us and sustained us and invigorated us for the fight against our enemies. The black swan is an expression of the nature of the intrinsic beauty of the Aakhuamuman African black woman. Aakhuamuman African black women and Aakhuamuman African men, grounded in the divinity of our identity, form the foundation for strong families and AMANSEM, nation building, restoration in its most authentic expression. The divinity of identity defines the nature of the black swan and defines the nature of the movement. So this is the cosmological foundation for this whole piece. And it began once again by interfacing with a sister who's actually a daughter of Het Heru, who's already engaged in that kind of work, empowering the community. This came out of that conversation. And of course, Nsamafo pushed us to make this not only just a statement, a manifestation of that cosmological function of Het Heru, but also becoming a movement to restore the consciousness of the divinity of beauty and the sacredness of beauty manifest as a divinity, a form of Het Heru. So our people can get back to harmonious thoughts, intentions, and actions and expressions and cease to engage and entertain disordered thoughts, intentions, and behaviors. So that's the basis. What we have now, and you'll see that on the front of the shirt is the symbol, the imagery, and the Medutu and so forth, the swan and Mut Ames Nepatari and the Sankopa symbol and the sacred waters and so forth, and Medutu. On the back of the shirt is the actual quote. What we're doing now is, initially we were going to use a certain printer. We want to use this specific black printer that we found in this region. In order to use that specific black printer, we have to have a certain number of shirts ordered because they don't just do one shirt at a time. So we just released this. It's only been a few weeks that we just, in fact, created the website and so forth and released it on November 6th. So it's only been a few weeks that it's been out. So what we're doing is we want to get to that certain number of shirts so that we can use the Afro-Akaini printing company so we can have everything in-house for that. So for those who have seen the symbolism, those who've seen the information, those who, appreciate the work and so forth, support the effort so we can begin if you look on the bottom of the page, Afro-Akaini women, mothers, daughters, sisters, nieces, wives, healeresses, represent this movement in our Musia or matriclans for the re-awareness of our intrinsic beauty on our own terms expressed through our ancestral standards. We have our own ancestral standards. When young women, young girls see people wearing a Black Swan Life t-shirt, and they see that hashtag Black Swan Life, they see it's not only a t-shirt, but it's also a movement, and they see the great mother, Queen Ames Nefertari, who's the epitome of Black Swan Life, the epitome of the Afro-Akaini woman, manifest beauty, manifest harmony, and so forth. When they see that, they begin to recalibrate their thoughts, intentions, and actions. They begin to reject the foolish ideas and standards forced upon them by the whites and their offspring and perpetuated by brainwashed Negroes in the community, and they begin to embrace who they actually are. They attune to the deity that governs their own tribe, their own head, the divinity in their head region, their own soul. And they align with that standard of the divinity that actually governs them. They align with the ancestresses and ancestors of their blood circle, but specifically with their master clan ancestresses, and align with their standards of beauty, not the standards put forward by our enemies, the whites and their offspring, who are incapable of manifesting beauty on any level. A bleached out Aakhuamuman spirit of disorder, there's no such thing as a beautiful white individual, whether it's a white European, white American, white Hispanic, white Asian, white Hindu, white pseudo-Native American, whatever. It's incongruent to manifest beauty through these perverse forms. The only beautiful woman that exists is the Afro-Akaini woman, the melanin-dominant Afro-Akaini woman, period. She is the child of the Abosom, child of female divinities. She's the only one capable of manifesting beauty on any level. When we understand who we actually are, we repel foolish ideas. And we don't seek to emulate those who are inferior to us, the whites and our offspring. We only seek to fully crystallize into our own greatness. So this is what the movement is about, a movement back towards harmony, which is manifest order, and beauty which is manifest harmony. So this is what Black Swan life is about. And it will take on many dimensions, not only T-shirts, but also dealing with publications, also dealing with film and so forth, educating our people, young women as well as older women, young men as well as older men, so we can begin to respect. And, of course, in our culture, when we talk about Ptah, when we have our workshops, when we talk about the term respect, to respect is to review every thought, intention, and action. Spect, as in spectacle, to inspect or spectate and so forth, is talking about viewing. So to respect is to review, and in our culture, we respect or review every thought, intention, and action, and align each with divine order every moment of every day. That is our culture's Afro-Kaini people. So when we engage that process of respecting or reviewing the Afro-Kaini woman, whether you're a male or whether you're a female, when you respect or review every thought, intention, and action you have with regard to the Afro-Kaini woman, and you measure it against the standard of our ancestral culture, which is the standard of divine order, then you reject stupidity, reject foolish ideas, reject foolish, perverse pseudo-standards, and you only embrace those standards that are reflective of divine order. And then you can no longer engage in self-destructive activity, self-hating behaviors. You only engage in self-constructive activities and self-law or self-love and so forth. So this is the nature of the Black Swan Life movement, and this is what we're moving towards. The first manifestation of that is the symbolism and the culture and the education, and people have been sharing the information and the cosmology concerning the information, and that's been transformative in and of itself to understand the nature of these abosom that govern beauty and so forth, Het Heru and so forth. But then the next piece is to manifest that through apparel. People wear clothes every single day. If we're going to wear clothes every single day, you can either wear something that promotes the whites and their offspring and their perverse culture, or you can wear something that promotes our culture. Any symbol, a collection of colors and shapes and forms in a harmonious fashion, as these symbols were pulled together by Afia, a child of Het Heru, in a harmonious fashion. Anytime you have a collection of symbols placed together in a harmonious fashion, they become a matrix of energy that radiate divine order. They become magnetic, and they draw the attention and draw the spirit of the person in. And when you see something, quote-unquote, beautiful, and it gives you pause, and you stop and stare, what you're engaged in is looking at the shrine of a divinity, whether it's a beautiful work of art that's manifest and was inspired by the abosom, inspired by the Nsamanfo, the deity, the ancestral spirits, or if you're looking at a child of Het Heru, a daughter of Het Heru, which is a living shrine of the divinity, and you see the beauty of that individual, and you stop and you pause, what you're doing is looking at a shrine of the divinity. No different than looking at a shrine if you go to someone's house and they have a shrine of an Orisha, a shrine of an abosom in their home, and you stop and salute that shrine and communicate to the abosom through that shrine. When you see a daughter of the abosom, a daughter of the Orisha and so forth, you're looking at a shrine, a living shrine of the divinity. When you look at a daughter of Het Heru, you're looking at a living shrine of the deity beauty. And this is why it gives us pause, and it makes us recalibrate our thoughts, intentions, and actions. Realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions. We seek to align with the divinity of beauty because we want to get in harmony with the divinity that's the manifestation of harmony. That means we want to get in harmony with order. This is what's taking place when we see something that's intrinsically beautiful, not something that's been scripted to be beautiful, like the whites and our offspring manufacturing false standards of beauty, but things that are intrinsically beautiful, extending directly from the divine sanction of the Supreme Being, a manifestation of that. When you see something that's intrinsically and innately beautiful, an expression of divine order, then that gives you pause. You take a moment to stop, realign yourself with that harmony, And then that allows you to begin to recalibrate your thoughts, intentions, and actions at that moment to try to manifest the beauty you just came in contact with. So this is what we're doing with these symbols. This is what we're doing every time we wear clothing, every time we speak, every time we move. So we want to constantly teach our people, constantly affect our people, and so forth. This is what this movement is about. All right, so if anybody has any questions, you can hit the number 1 on the phone line. That is the information that we wanted to go over tonight. As we're going through this process, once again, for those who came in a little bit later, we talked about the HAPI-MERIT retreat, the training, cultural, and ritual retreat. The deadline was last Friday, but we had a couple of cancellations, so we have some space that has opened up. If you would still like to participate, we have a couple of spaces left. So you can go to the HAPI-MERIT page and reserve your space. Of course, they're first come, first served. We have a couple of spaces left. If you would like to support the Black Swan Life movement, you can order a shirt for yourself, order a shirt for your niece, your daughter, your mother, your sister, sister friends, and so forth. We want to get to that certain number of shirts so we can utilize the black printer. But we want to, of course, do everything in-house. But we have to order a certain number of shirts to do that. We've had a couple of people, about 4 people, order the shirts so far. We were going to use that other printer, but we would prefer to use the black printer and do that tomorrow, go in tomorrow and utilize that black printer tomorrow and Saturday and so forth, Meminada, Fida and Meminada Friday and Saturday. So if you support the work that we're doing, if you support the cosmology and the approach that we're using with regard to this symbolism to affect people on an ancestral level, place an order for 1 or more of the shirts today, and that will allow us to get to that point where we have enough orders so that we can utilize the Aakhuamuman company to do the printing work. Okay, we have a call on the phone line. Michio on the phone line, number 2081. You had a question or a comment?
Yes. It's good to hear from you, brother. It's been a long time. I know you've been keeping up. Yes. Well, one intriguing question I have is probably for one. I've noticed a lot of black businesses are doing a few things now that have been around for over 2 decades. Either they sell out or some have to sell. Like the guy that owned Golden Crust, that if people read the article, mysteriously said he committed suicide, but the story say otherwise. I'm not sure if you were familiar with this.
I heard something about it, but I hadn't had a chance. I've seen some people post about the Golden Crust piece, but I didn't get a chance to fully investigate.
Okay. The reason why I'm bringing this to attention, but I've noticed that most people that establish any business, I noticed that either 1 or 2 things has happened. Either they're in it for the money, or some of the Odwirafo try and push them out. It's one way or the other, because if you establish any business that's doing well and is building that was helpful for the community, it makes me think, say, why would the average black male or black female, African male, African female would sell their business after establishing for more than 2 decades? Because at the end of the day, we have these business, but another Akwamu could buy us out. But if you're not in it for the long haul, why are you in it for? You know? So that's what I'm finding very interesting now. A scenario here. Like, some of people either going to hold firm or something's going to happen. I'm not sure if you have any answer for this.
Well, the key is it has to do with amamre, what we call our way of life or culture. When you're grounded in ancestral culture, you have a purpose. You understand what your function is. You understand what your nkra and nkrabia, your function in creation is. And then everything you engage in, every thought, intention, and action revolves around the divine function you came into the world to execute. Whether you're a healer, engineer, an educator, an agriculturalist, it all serves the Almighty, serves the nation, the Afro-Akani nation, and it serves, of course, the people, the Afro-Akani people within the nation. It's all about building, sustaining, protecting, developing, growing, and so forth. When we engage white culture, we only seek, self-aggrandizement or material possessions and so forth. We can have material possessions. We did a broadcast talking about spirit possession and material possessions. We've had material possessions, and we can do that in the context of ancestral culture. Ancient Kemet was a very wealthy society, one of the most, wealthy societies at this particular time. The same thing with the Asante and Akwamu and these various nations. You see a great deal of material wealth. They called it the Gold Coast because of all the gold and, everything else. But things can be done in the context of ancestral culture. When our people sell out just specifically because they want some funds so they can, use those funds to support a lifestyle that's within the realm of white culture, then that's simply self-destructive. The whites in our offspring understand that. So they recognize, for example, Unilever comes in and purchases Shea Moisture and Nubian Heritage. They see a multi-million-dollar company. They saw black people were, on one hand, developing a multi-million-dollar company that was based on our culture. It was based on pride and people be dealing with, economics cooperatively, but also developing some pride of who they are. Every time you pick up something that says Nubian Heritage, if a child picks up a box that says Nubian and Heritage, then they're thinking about, well, what is Nubian? Or why is heritage important? They may begin to engage in some, study. They may want to go natural because they realize that that's normal and productive, and imitating the whites in their offspring is self-destructive. The whites in their offspring see that, number one, they're becoming economically, powerful, but the key is they want to destroy the minds of our people because these are parasites. The whites in our offspring are cancerous cells. They see us growing and developing and becoming self-sufficient and actually respecting ourselves, reviewing ourselves, loving ourselves, and developing ourselves. They want to destroy that. So they want to take that business away from the black people, put their own spin on it. Our people become deflated and so forth and start making excuses and apologies for these Negroes and everything else. Anything that we're engaged in, they would like to destroy. They want to take it away from us, and they don't want us to engage. Anything that will lead us to our culture, they want to destroy that. Anything that will lead us to some economic empowerment, they want to destroy it, but they're not necessarily concerned if it was only about economic empowerment, because that's no different than people who are, for example, athletes or entertainers. They don't mind athletes or entertainers making hundreds of millions of dollars. That is not economic empowerment, because those Negroes are so brainwashed, they're going to spend 99% of those hundreds of millions with white people, so it goes right back to white culture. And they uphold white culture and everything that they do, so it doesn't matter that they're given hundreds of millions of dollars. The whites in our offspring don't care about that at all. They're not worried about that. They're not concerned about economic empowerment for black people in and of itself. If the economic empowerment is tied to cultural awareness, and we're building ourselves up culturally and recognizing who we are, then that's a problem, because when we recognize who we are, then we also recognize immediately who the enemy is, which is the whites in our offspring. And then we seek to eradicate them instead of embracing them. So it's dangerous for us to understand who we are because we recognize that they are the enemy without exception. So anytime they see anything that has to do with cultural awareness in connection with economic empowerment, even if it has no economic empowerment, they seek to destroy cultural awareness. This is why they put out these agents, these clowns who are talking about Moorishism or Hebrewism or Islam or, African Americans ain't African and all that other nonsense. That's white agent, white pseudo-supremacy agent nonsense. And they had their little black agents running around all over the internet posting that foolishness and brainwashing people to attack anything that has to do with real cultural awareness, identity, because they recognize that's a threat to them. When we begin to wake up to who we are, we automatically embrace divine order, which is comprised of divine law, love, and divine hate, the expansive and contractive poles of divine order. So we seek to empower ourselves and exterminate our enemies. So anytime they see cultural awareness bubbling up amongst our people, they seek to destroy it. And if they see economic empowerment in connection with cultural awareness, they seek to destroy it and divert it and start introducing dissexuality and homosexuality and diversity and all this other nonsense to that. So our people who are not really culturally aware, they will fall for that and they will ally themselves with the whites and offspring like the owners of Nubian Heritage Sundial Products did. But of course, as we put on Facebook and so forth, there are many, many black companies that sell and develop their own natural soaps, natural hair, bath and body products and so forth. We don't need Nubian Heritage at all. We don't have to boycott them. We just cut them off 100%. They can go out of business. Who cares? We don't need them. We can support black businesses who are actually culturally grounded. Just because somebody says they're Afrocentric doesn't mean anything. You can't be Afrocentric and then sell out to your enemy just for some funds and try to diversify with your enemy. With a originally culturally based, culturally aware product. So, there are over 2 million black businesses in America. There are over 2 million black people who are unemployed. We spend over $1 trillion yearly. 95% of that, or $950 billion of that, is spent outside of the community. The other $50 billion spent within our community. We can shift hundreds of billions of dollars away from white businesses and empower all of our businesses overnight just by making a decision. We can empower all those 2 million black businesses by shifting billions of dollars that we're already spending away from white businesses and direct them specifically to black businesses and employ every black person in the country and, empower our own businesses. So it's all about cultural awareness. It's all about those who are culturally grounded, then they make proper decisions. Those who are not, they seek audience and seek connection with the whites and offspring, then we cut them off for good permanently, and we deal with those who are doing the right thing. Part of that process, though, is building up Afurakani men and Afurakani women who are culturally grounded, who know what real, quote-unquote, Afrocentrism, or what it means to be Afurakani, what it means to be Afurakani, and so forth. And many of these pseudo-scholars and pseudo-elders and so forth who really never had an understanding of that. They were misinformed when they were in their 20s and 30s and putting together these misinformed ideas about what Afrocentrism is, and it was still mixed with some Eurocentric ideas and blackface. And then 40 years later, they have gray hair, and they appear to be elders and eldresses, and they're still putting forward the same misinformed formulations that they first put forward 40 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And nobody ever checked or challenged the misinformation. So some people assume that, well, this is an elder. They must know what they're talking about. They've been doing this for 40 years. But in reality, they never knew what they were talking about. So we have to build up real Afurakani awareness, and this is part of the process of HAPI-MERIT with our retreat, the Afurakani manhood book, Afurakani womanhood book, which is properly grounded in our real ancestral religious traditions and awareness, and the same thing with the Black Swan Life piece. This is what it's all about. So, but yet I'll say we appreciate the call.
I have one other question. Hello?
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I know you know what goes on, especially in the continent with Libya. Is most of our people, because of the mindset, there's something that they're very much indoctrinated to really put themselves in a position to be, I guess, forced slavery that's going on in Libya. Or, it's something else, because if this is going on in that part of Africa, and it looks like they're not really culture grounded if they're able to let the enemy swim in slavery. I'm not sure am I wrong for saying this.
What you have, of course, is very similar to, different areas of the continent as well as in the Western Hemisphere. Our people embracing white culture, embracing Islam, that misinformation, that self-destructive approach to life and so forth. And what is the result of that? It's no different than eating, certain foods that are not, in agreement with your physiology, with your structure. Eating the kind of diet that's promoted heavily in the Western Hemisphere that's not good for our bodies and so forth. we begin to weaken ourselves. And then if there's a time to fight, it's difficult to fight back. It's the same thing with embracing these false ideas of who God is and what a God is, and these fake ideas of God like in Islam and Christianity and Hebrewism and Hinduism and everything else. When you embrace a pseudo-religion and a false set of beliefs, you begin to ally with your enemy. So you have some people who are allying with the enemy. You have some people who are worshiping the enemy. Some people believing that Allah put them in this position because they went against Allah and so forth. They're allowing these different things to happen. When our people embrace our real culture, what will really take place is you'll see some of those black Libyans standing up and massacring any white thing moving. Male, female, babies, any white thing moving, they will begin to massacre them, decapitate them, set them on fire, whatever weapon they need to use. If they need to use their car, their truck, and run through a crowd of crackers, that's what they're going to do. When they start massacring the whites and their offspring, then they'll put that to an end immediately. It's no different than slavery here. If you had a overseer whipping somebody, a quote-unquote slave who was hung up on a tree, and then everybody's standing around watching and crying, that's because of indoctrination. Those 10 people who are standing there watching the overseer whipping the enslaved brother or sister, they could all rush the overseer and rip his arms literally off his body, rip his head off his body, and crush his head into the ground. But they're not thinking like that because they've been indoctrinated with false religion and false self-destructive culture, white culture. When we break out of that mindset, then you'll see white bodies piling up in Libya. You'll see white residences on fire. Every time they see a white individual, they will seek to exterminate them. Then you'll see a change. That's what our people need to move towards. When they embrace ancestral religion, that's what they'll be moving towards. But we're going to go to the next. We got one more call, so we appreciate the call.
Thank you, Dan. Answer my call.
Okay, hold on 1 second. We're going to try to do this again. Okay, Michelle on the phone line number 1295. Got a question or comment?
Michelle, well, yeah, I've been reading the Odwirafo about Bast, and there's a part where you bring up Ptah, and I was trying to get some further detail as to what you're talking about when it comes to Ptah in relation to Bast. And it says the Aakhuamuman is the primary vessel of Bast, while the Aakhuamuman is a secondary vessel. Conversely, the Aakhuamuman is the primary vessel of the male bosom Ptah, while the Aakhuamuman is a secondary vessel. And I'm trying to find out what it is, what you mean by that, and how Bast and Ptah function together.
Okay, so the reason we talk about it like that because it was focused on Bast, right? And it's a 4-part series, and when people see the Odwirafo, we have a Odwirafo blog on WordPress. The brother's talking about. We did a 4-part series on the female divinity, Bastet, Bast, so-called cat divinity, feline divinity, and so forth. So even though it was focused on her, and we were talking about her function with regard to affection, we talked about the connection between her and Het Heru, who's dealing with the central attraction that deals with the fusion, the complementary opposites, and then Bast dealing with the perpetuation of that fusion, which is affection. So, and when they show the unjuin jar of Bast, they talk about the oil jar or the perfume jar and so forth. Within the physical body, that's the pericardium, which is a heart sac, the fluid-filled sac that the heart is contained within, and it protects the heart and so forth. But that's the physiological center or shrine of Bast within the body, dealing with affection and so forth. So we go into some detail about that. So we were focused on her, and we show, where she's seated within the body. But just like you have in certain context, Ptah and Sekhmet are husband and wife with regard to the core of Earth and so forth and fashioning within the core of Earth. You also have, in certain contexts, where you have Ptah and Bast are husband and wife. So Ptah, within the body, you'll find him inside the brain formulating thoughts, ideas. In ancient Kemet, you'll see him as the divine fashioner. So he's mummified. He has on the skull cap, headdress, and he's mummified. He's the great fashion. Ptah means the fashion of form. So Ra and Ra, the creator and creatress, under the direction of Amen and Amenet, go out and create, bring things into being out of nothing. They're the divine living energy that, spirals through the black substance of space, carving out, black spheres, which become the first stars and so forth, and their energy penetrates those first stars, and eventually, the planets and so forth are formed. Ptah is the force at the core, the inner core of Earth, constantly fashioning and forming the specific forms of, the Earth and different aspects of Earth. And within your body, he's within the brain, fashioning, forming, in the core, fashioning and forming your thoughts into harmonious structure. So he's the divine fashioner. Sometimes they show him at a potter's wheel and so forth. So while he's fashioning thought forms in a, harmonious fashion, then Bast is taking those thought forms and projecting that affection. So when you have head and root fusing together complementary opposites, a conception of a being and so forth, as well as conception of ideas that are harmonious, that's that manifestation of beauty, which is a manifestation of harmony. Then Bast takes that beauty and then she perpetuates that throughout the course of your life. So that's dealing with affection. That perpetuation of affection is the perpetuation of beauty, what was founded by Het Heru and perpetuated by Bast. When you have Ptah and Bast as husband and wife, the thought forms that he fashions, the behaviors that he fashions in his workshop, his divine fashioning and so forth, he's fashioning forms according to divine order, and then those naturally ordered thought forms are perpetuated in his union with Bastet. So even though we were focused on her, and of course she's a female divinity, so of course the Akwamu is going to be her primary, vessel. But then she also has a seat within the Afrakani male because it's the pericardium, it's the fluid-filled sac in the heart. She's there just like your mother and father. You have DNA from your mother, you have DNA from your father. You have characteristics from both. But, of course, you're going to be lopsided more towards your father with regard to your characteristics and the manifestation of your temperament and so forth because you're a male and you have that masculine energy, even though you do have something from your mother. And it's the flip side for the female. So the female is the Afro-Aikani female is the primary, vessel of Bast, but secondarily she manifests that, Ptah energy from her quote-unquote spiritual father. We are the primary vessel for Ptah, but secondarily, of course, we have that Bast energy within us as well. We have that capacity to manifest affection, which is the perpetuation of that, manifested beauty, that manifested harmony.
Merase. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, Merase. We appreciate the call. So if you go to the Odwirafo, what the brother was talking about, as we said, that's another thing that we created over the previous cycle in 13,017 in the summertime. We created, hold on one second, we created a blog site on WordPress, which is Odwirafo, which means matters, Asem of purification, or purification matters of purification. And we're, going through different aspects of culture and cosmology and various different things in a purified fashion, purifying the understanding of these different things so we can apply these things to our lives each and every day. So that's what that blog is about. We have a number of articles on that blog. We're posting articles on that blog on a regular basis. And, of course, those can be shared on various social media sites and so forth. That's one of the reasons we put that up. Okay, so we're going to end the broadcast here. If you have any questions or comments, you can, of course, connect with us on Odwirafo.com, of course, Kwesi Akhan, and Odwirafo Akhan on Facebook, Odwirafo on Instagram, Odwirafo on Twitter, Odwirafo on YouTube. We have published to date 29 books. The ebook versions of our books are free downloads. We've made all of our books free downloads. Of course, sometimes our people do not have the funds to purchase books at a specific time, but we cannot, as far as we're concerned, we're not going to hold accurate information ransom because people don't have the economics to spend $9 or $10 on a book at a particular time. So the ebook versions of our books are free, all 29 of them, and it's the full book. But then we also sell the soft cover versions of our books. They range between $8 and $11. Most of them are $9 or $10. We also have a special. We have the weekend special, subscriber special, a couple of them. The first 7 books for $40, and you'll see that on the Nhoma Publications page. That's Aakhuamuman, the origin of the term Africa. Madanechi, divine law and divine hate, which is talking about the expansive and contracted poles of divine order. We have the Okra complex, the soul of Akhan, talking about the nature of the soul, the Ka, the Ori, Inu, the Okra, so forth in different traditions. We have Ubin Shane, the ancestral summons, dealing with our ritual practices and their functionality. We have Kukutumtum, the ancestral jurisdiction, talking about the cosmological foundation of creation, and also proving that the various fictional cartoon characters never existed of any form or of any race, including Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Yahweh, Moses, Aaron, Buddha, Brahman, and so forth. All these Allah, all these fictional cartoon characters. Go into detail about that. And then we have Akradim Boston Part 1 and Part 2, which is part of a multi-book series dealing with the Abosom, who govern the 7 days of the week, as they manifest in Akhan culture and in the culture of ancient Kanit and Kemet, Nubian Kemet, and we also show the connections in the Yoruba, Ewe, and Fon traditions and so forth. That set of 7 books, the first 7 books, which are foundational, it's $40 for those first 7 books. We have that special on the website. We also have the special for the entire 29-book set. And, of course, we print our own books in color, in-house on our own printers. The entire 29-book set for $129, and that includes shipping. So 29 books for $129, which includes shipping. So it's really basically $120, and then the shipping is $9. So it's $129 for the 29 books. And that's like a set of encyclopedias, basically. You can look at the various books on the website, on the Nhoma page, the publications page on the website, to see which ones you would like, or if you would like the whole set, and you'll see that special discount. And then we also have discounts. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. So, for example, the first 10 books is $66, and you'll see the list of 10 books, 11 books, 12, all the way through. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off of the regular retail price that ranges between $8 and $11. So whether you purchase 1 book for $9, or 2 books for $18, or the first 7 books for $40, or the first 10 for $66, or the entire book set for $129, whatever it is, all that information is on the website. But what we want to do is, we do, as we said earlier, with regards to the Black Swan Life shirts, this is part of a movement. We do want to utilize the black printer, so we have to get a certain number of shirts ordered before we can order that bulk, because they don't do 1 shirt at a time, or they don't do 2 shirts at a time. The more you order, the higher the lower the price is, but there's a certain number. We basically need to order that first, place an order of 50 shirts up front. So if we get a number of people to make an order of 1 or 2 shirts, then 25 people ordering 2 shirts, of course, or 50 people ordering 1, or 25 ordering 2, or some people may order a few shirts for their people in their family or coworkers or something as a birthday gift or whatever. That will allow us to reach that number very quickly, and then we can utilize the black printer and, move forward in that way. So if you can, please support that effort now. Before you forget, of course, go to the Black Swan Life link on our page, odwirafo.com/blackswanlife.html. All of the details are there. And if you would like to reserve a space for the HAPI-MERIT Training, Cultural, and Ritual Retreat, which is coming up in February, but we have a couple of spaces that opened up because of cancellations. First come, first serve. You can go to the space, the page HAPI-MERIT on the website and reserve your space today. We only have a couple of spaces left, so as we said, first come, first serve. So again, Yerase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. That's it.